What's up, everybody? Well, I made it home. Welcome to week 4. I want you to know that I was wanting to record the final episode out in the woods, but I made a mistake. I made a mistake because I forgot to take a spare battery with me for the camera. And so, of course, you know what happened. The battery died on the camera and I couldn't record my final video out in the woods. So I'm sitting here on the back of a truck here in my driveway recording the final week 4 video. But that brings me to a point. To this week's lesson is about be wise, learn from your mistakes. So I guess I need to learn from my mistake. I need to make sure I take a spare battery or a way to charge the battery in the camera, don't I? So I have promised you a story. And so I'm sitting here drinking my nice clean water, and it reminds me of a story that kind of relates to making a mistake or learning from our mistakes. When I was a Boy Scout, and we were out hiking one day, and man, it was hot. And some of you probably heard the story before, but it was so hot. And we were walking, and finally we ran out of water. And this was years ago, and so we had the metal canteens that Boy Scouts carried at the time. And so we saw this, we were walking next to this creek, and so we jumped down in the creek and filled our canteens full of water and just guzzled that water, drank the water. And man, got all nice and refreshed, climbed back up onto the trail and started hiking again. And no more than probably 500 yards, probably wasn't even that far, went around the corner, and right there in the middle of that creek where we had just filled our canteens and drank all that water was the biggest, ugliest dead dog in the water that you'd ever seen. A dead dog laying right in the middle of that stream. And so every bit of that water had flown over that dead dog. Oh gosh, it was terrible. We all just got sick and poured all of our water out, and started spitting and everything. But you talk about a mistake. Our mistake was not knowing the source of the water. And so that was a mistake that I learned from. And we from that point on, we always made sure that we knew where the water came from that we put in our canteens and things like that, or made sure that we purified, boiled the water before we put it in our canteens. But oh, that was horrible. It was such a terrible mistake. Well, thinking about that dog, the Bible verse for this week is it is probably the grossest Bible verse, or one of them, in the entire Bible. It's found in the book of Proverbs, and it says that a dog returns to its vomit. Yes, that's right. The word vomit is in the Bible. And it says that the dog returns to the vomit just as a fool returns to his foolishness, And so it's talking about that we need to learn from the mistakes we make. We don't need to just keep going back to those same mistakes over and over and over and over again. I have to admit there's been many a time that I have not learned from the mistake, and I've just kept going back to that. And each time I think, how foolish that was. How foolish that was. That wasn't wise at all. That I made this mistake, and and instead of learning from that mistake, I just went back and did the exact same thing again. And that's what the children's church lesson week 4 is all about. It's our point is going to be wise, learn from your mistakes. And we need to learn from our mistakes. We need to realize that when we make a mistake, God puts those things in our path so that we will learn from those. And when we don't learn, we're being foolish. And so it's going to be an interesting lesson because I've watched the preview of it, and it's kind of interesting whenever they start talking about a dog returning to its vomit. So I want you to think about this. Parents, maybe share with your kids a time whenever you made a mistake. You know, it may be a big mistake, it may have been a small mistake, it may have just been like us and, oh gosh, drinking out of that water with the dead dog in it. But talk with your kids and say, you know, this was a mistake I made, and then this is the lesson that I've learned. Because God wants us to learn from our mistakes, and we need to learn from them, but we can also learn from the mistakes of others. And so there's a lot to be said. There's a lot of phrases about this, you know, talking about that the definition of insanity is making the same mistake over and over and over again and expecting different results and things like that. I know that I didn't quote that exactly, but you guys know me. I don't quote things exactly most of the time. But I just wanted to record this last week here. And week 4, be wise. Learn from your mistakes. Oh man, I drank dead water from a dog. It was awful. I'll see you in kids' church. See ya. Bye.